Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're gonna take a look at Dan Heng Permansor Terrae. So certain streamers have unlocked the rights to stream Dan Heng on their YouTube channels. So what we'll do is we will go into a trailer released by Howeverse, and after finishing that trailer, we will go to the we'll go into some YouTube channels. We'll take a look at Dan Heng, and after that, I'll also be giving my comments on whether do you need to even choose his signature weapons or eidolons, because this unit is gifted to you for free. Do you even need this unit's eidolons or his signature weapons, and are there any set alternatives? Are there any set of weapons that are free to play that you can use it on Danang to ensure this guy plays fast and smooth. And we'll also take a look at what sets suit Danang, and we'll go through them all. So right now we will get into a trailer, and then we'll also take a look at certain early access YouTube channels as well. Let's jump here, and here we go.
Nameless Dan Heng, Chrysosaur who guards the Earth's core flame, steadies the world as it falls, and guides all life across the land to a new home beyond. All rivers flow to the sea, mountains echo in chorus, and the path of permanence shall stretch beyond horizons. From the frosty plains of Eurillo 6 to the towering mountains of Amphorius, this Nameless from the Sinjol Ofu had always been the Trailblazer's trusty companion. On this episode, let's take a renewed look at this good friend of the Trailblazing journey, Dan Heng Permanisor Terrae! Dan Heng is an old friend of this show. He's been here plenty of times as either a guest or the main attraction. This time, we specifically invited his good friend March 7th, who has journeyed with him all this time to take a look at his new form. Huh? Oh, you're on a new form today as well.
Hello, Mr. Albert.
Mr. Wait, shouldn't you, Oh.
That's not important, Mr. Albert. The viewers are all brimming with anticipation for Dan Heng's new powers. Let's check him out.
Dan Heng Permansor Terrae is a physical character on the path of preservation. When that sign of Long inherits the Earth core flame, the power of permanence within his body will shield all life at Amphorius, carrying them into the distant sea of stars and into the boundless unknown. Using his basic attack, Dan Heng Permansor Terrae deals physical damage based on his attack to one designated enemy. His skill designates one ally as his bondmate, and also provides a shield to all allies for some turns.
Dan Heng also acts like a guard in March's memories, and has always protected the Express crew.
Protection? Preservation? I can refer him to the IPC. When an ally target becomes the bondmate, Dan Heng Permansor Terrae will summon Soul Dragon for them. When Soul Dragon takes action, it dispels debuffs from all allies and provides a shield that lasts for some turns. By the way, the shield effect provided by Dan Heng Permansor Terrae and Soul Dragon can be stacked to a certain limit.
And there's still more benefits to becoming his bondmate.
Indeed! Certain traces will increase the attack of the bondmate, ally target. Using his ultimate, Dan Heng Permansor Terrae deals damage to all enemies and provides a shield to all allies for some turns. The ultimate will also enhance Soul Dragon, and Soul Dragon will launch a follow-up attack when it takes action, dealing physical damage to all enemies and additional damage of the bondmate's type. After unlocking certain traces, Soul Dragon provides a shield to the ally with the lowest current shield. When the enhanced Soul Dragon acts, it deals extra additional damage of the bondmate's type based on their attack to the enemy with the highest current HP. Using his technique, Dan Heng Permansor Terrae gains bondmate and dazes enemies within a certain range. Dazed enemies will not actively attack allies. When switching active characters, bondmate transfers to the currently active character. At the start of the next battle, he will automatically use his skill on the bondmate character without consuming any skill points.
He's the glue of the group.
Everyone can see that Dan Heng is very reliable. In summary, as a character following the path of preservation, Dan Heng Permansor Terrae has many ways to provide shields to all allies in order to mitigate damage. At the same time, Soul Dragon also brings different buffs. Not only can he ensure allied characters' survivability in combat, but he also boosts the bondmate character's damage.
March did mention that his hidden powers are more than holding his breath underwater for 100 minutes.
You remember a show from that long ago? No wonder your remembrance.
I have a memory of Dan Heng fighting together with his friends. Want to analyze that, Mr. Albert?
It's rare to see a guest bring her own content. Let me take a look. After allies use their techniques and enter combat, Dan Heng Permanisor Terrae uses his skill to make finding the bondmate while shielding all allies. Thanks to certain traces, Dan Heng Permanisor Terrae acts first and uses his skill on finding again to stack his shield. Meanwhile, Dan Heng Permanisor Terrae's energy has fully charged, so he uses his ultimate enhances Soul Dragon while stacking shields for all allies. The enemy's attacks can barely be felt against its mighty shield. They just give fine core flames. Soul Dragon attacks, replenishing shields again while defeating the enemy. Sunday then uses his skill. Wait, could this be?
Yep, that's Dan Heng's hidden power.
Goodness! So Soul Dragon can be considered the bondmate summon. Then Sunday's skill would move both Finan and Soul Dragon up the action order, and as the bondmate, Finan would gain Sunday's additional damage boost. That's amazing! Finan uses his ultimate to terrible in the skies. With Soul Dragon's enhanced attack following up, the enemies are reduced to dust, with Dan Heng Permanisor Terrae on our side. And that's a wrap! Wow, this episode sure was easy to record. Thanks again, Miss Evan Knight.
Then I won't trouble you anymore. You might need to do overtime soon.
Overtime? Why do I need to do that when the show's already done?
Listen.
Huh? What happened? I should have full day of work and finished the episode. Was it all a dream? I have to go to work in my dreams and in reality. And this sucks.
Okay, so we'll take a look at. You guessed it right. We'll take a look at other streamers like Gober Certified, who has got access to Dan Heng Permansor Terrae, right? So let us take a look at him and his analysis of Dan Heng Permansor Terrae. And what are going to be his best builds, relics, and what set of teams will fit him best. And do you even need the signature light cone for him to function better? Or and is there any free to play like 4-star weapons that could work just as good as his 5-star light cones? So let us take a look at that.
Hey, Go Peter here. It's time to check out the brand new and completely free sustain Dan Heng Permansor Terrae, or Peter, or Dante, or Dan GPT. Whatever you call him, he will still be a very potent team-wide shielder that also comes with substantial utility, whether that be boosting attack, improving your synergies with Sunday, or more. We'll check out his simple but nice kit, and then his Eidolons, and finish with builds and team synergies. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and comment below what you think of it. And now, let's begin. So after years of waiting, okay, only one and a bit, we got a new preservation, and Dan Heng is our first physical preservation unit. For stats, he has the highest defense value in the game alongside Firefly for some reason, despite not using it at all for shielding. Anyways, for leveling up his abilities, you'll just want to level up his talent, ult, and skill altogether and ignore his basics. He will use all three for shielding, and his ult also offers some offensive power. And now for those abilities. Dan Heng's skill will designate an ally as his bondmate. Then he provides all allies with a shield scaling on his attack, plus a large flat amount for 3 turns. Just like Aventurine, our newest preservation unit can also stack his shield further, and Danny's will stack until 300% of the shield value from his skill. But what does this bondmate effect do? Well, when an ally becomes the bondmate, Soul Dragon will be summoned, and it has a speed of 165. Except unlike every other classic summon unit, aka Jingyuan, Topaz, and Linkshire, this dragon will be summoned for the bondmate. This means it counts as their summon. So for example, if we use Sunday skill on our DPS with Soul Dragon on them, instead of getting the usual 30% damage for a non-summon hypercarry, we now get a whopping 80%. 50% extra damage from your sustain if using Sunday is pretty potent. It could be nearly 20% damage jump on a carry with some damage already in their kit. Not to mention that Sunday skilling will also bring up Soul Dragon right behind your DPS, just like any other summon. And this works if you have a summon already, Sunday will just move both. But that's not all. You can also, for example, activate the Banana Amusement Park planar set now if you farmed some of those. This is one of the highest crit value sets in the game, so having access to that is also really nice. I hope we see some more summon interactions that we can use with Dan Heng in the future, but now what does Soul Dragon do? Well, when they take action, we get a team-wide dispel of 1 debuff. On top of that, it provides a shield that has half the potency of the skill's shield. But yet again, we can stack the shield, so what this actually does is ensure shield uptime. The problem we have sometimes with Aventurine is shields falling off with high action advance. Well, now you have much better uptime as Soul Dragon has a high speed of 165, among some other action count-based benefits we'll see later. As for Danny's ultimate, he will do damage to all enemies, which will do like no damage, and then provide yet again a shield, this time the same strength as the skills. But then, Soul Dragon is enhanced for 2 actions. Now, when Soul Dragon acts, it launches a follow-up attack, dealing damage to all enemies yet again. But on top of that, you will now get additional damage based on the bondmate stats and type. It is 80% of their attack at level 10, so you're getting 80 to 400% attack multipliers extra on your DPS whenever this enhanced dragon acts. That is pretty powerful, since multiply buffs or sources are very rare, and it's also nice for helping out single target DPS in AoE scenarios. Now note that this follow-up attack does not count as an attack of the character that Dan Heng summoned it for. The additional damage is the character's damage, but additional damage does not count as them attacking or hitting for any effects that rely on that. Finally, the technique is basically Sridget's. You will gain bondmate that will transfer around when switching characters pre-combat. When entering, you'll get a free skill usage on the character that enters without consuming SP. It's very cool, and it ensures you have shields up immediately, and you also ensure Soul Dragon is summoned at the start of combat. Though this automatic skill can be annoying for some teams, as for example Dot enters with Kafka, and we'd want bondmate on high ceilings. Anyways, just a small problem as you can skill again on his turn. Now let's finish with his bonus abilities. His A2 shows us why bondmate is even more important to have on your carry. He will in fact buff attack of the bondmate by an amount equal to 15% of his own attack. So if he has 4000 attack, that's 600 flat attack for your carry. It may be diluted in the case of a Robin, but if you don't consider a Robin, that can be upwards of another 15% damage amp permanently from a sustain. Now, what about Daniel? He needs some love too. Well, his A4 first gives him an inbuilt Vonuak. Now he can get ahead of the team and start generating SP ASAP, or giving an extra skill in the case of some compositions. Him and Soul Dragon now get benefits as well from the bondmate, about time. When the bondmate uses an attack, Dan Heng regenerates 6 energy, and Soul Dragon is advanced by 15%. This means your DPS is now battering Dan Heng, and it also means more DPS attacks can provide even better shield uptime. Finally, his A6. Soul Dragon will take pity on the character with the weakest shield amount and give a small bonus to them whenever Soul Dragon takes an action. This is a quarter of the skill's shield effect. As for the enhanced Soul Dragon, it now gets another instance of damage. It is half the value of the normal amount, so only 40% attack, but at least it goes to the enemy with the highest HP, so a tribute effect. If considering 3 targets and a decently long fight as well as 6 Soul Dragon attacks, these extra attack multipliers can provide another 10% DPS increase. Note on all of these simulations I'm using the same base and Naxa sim that can vary from other characters' performances. And in trace bonuses we get a buff to attack, thankfully, as well as some speed and then some defense because why not base tank everything? Before we talk about his value, let's see Eidolons. Remember, he is free, so you do start at E0 when pulling. That doesn't mean you should pull extra copies just because he's free. Now, Dan Heng's Z1 is a pretty baller one for some compositions. At least universally, we can agree that 18% ult-type res pen for your bondmate after ulting is pretty nice for a sustained vertical investment option, and is in a vacuum another 18% DPS increase. It will suffer if you use a multi-DPS comp, but for hype carry it is potent. Now it doesn't end there. Ulting on Dan Heng also now recovers 1 SP. This is also very powerful, but not in every comp. It kinda makes him have the SP generation of Gallagher now though. If you basic every turn and then ult gives 1 SP, it's like the action advance mechanic Gallagher gets. Either way, awesome for SP gen and some buffing, but he functions just great without it. E2 then offers some more multiply power. We get 4 enhanced Soul Dragons per ult rather than 2, so twice the amount of extra multipliers for your carry. We then get a 100% advance forward on Soul Dragon after Dan ults, E2 deal reference mayhaps. So more Soul Dragon turns straight up, and I guess some help with shields if you ever need it. And then we get a buff to the additional damage and shield from said enhanced turns. Now, this Eidolon varies depending on your carry. If we again consider the Anaxa sim and add double the damage and double the dragons, we get a 30% DPS increase. But a Finan, for example, cannot let Dan Heng ult again so soon if he is departed, and a less frequent attacking carry also prevents as many Soul Dragons. E4 is then some damage reduction and not a pull target, and E6 takes the damage up some more. We get a permanent 20% vulnerability, 12% death ignore for the bondmate, and then ulting on Dan Heng finally does damage with 330% additional bondmate base damage to all targets. That is a whopping 1650% in AoE, and altogether in the sim, that's another 25% or more DPS increase over the previous Eidolon. But remember, that's a whole lot of pulls, and not as crazy as some DPS or support Eidolons. So with that all out of the way, what do I think of Dan Heng at Permanisor Terrae? Well, first of all, he is a very good sustain and free, so I'm happy that everyone gets some free help with enemy damage getting higher. Especially when considering Anomaly Arbitration, as even though it doesn't give Stellar Jades, that interference key is a lovely pickup, and sustaining enough for the 1-star has proven tricky for some players. But sustaining isn't all he does, he also provides a bunch of buffs and utility. If we add 600 attack, 50% damage from Sunday's new synergy, and a decent amount of Soul Dragon attacks on my 3.2 Anaxa sim, we get over a 50% DPS increase combined versus using a non-buffing sustain like Gallagher. A 1.5 times increase to your carry's damage from a sustain is very, very good, and can get to something like 2 times with E1S1. If the carry prefers Banana Movement over their current option, another small increase. And you could consider other sets like Sakados and the new Recluse set, but healers can use their own buffing sets anyway. Now, some of it is slightly conditional. More multipliers from a Saridra would nerf the Soul Dragon impact, though, to be honest, more skills on a Naxa would mean more dragons anyway. But for example, not using Sunday would significantly nerf his buffs. But he does just work, and always gives a bunch of attack and multipliers, and he's always going to be SP positive while sustaining your team with great uptime, at least outside of Anomaly Arbitration. He will be one of the best sustains in any attack-based team, and likely the best if using Sunday. I can only see some teams like Ezreal or Glaya and maybe Saber prefer Hawthorne or Quid Pro Quo Gallagher. Now, his sustain is still not perfect in Anomaly Arbitration until S1, but he can still sustain okay at S0 with some extra skill points. And having Cleanse rather than immediate F-res can sometimes hurt, like in the case of Entanglement on these Lions. I hate these Lions so much. I also think you should be wise when playing him. You can miss on some Soul Dragons and also waste shield power if ulting too early or using attacks at wrong moments. If you see your shield drop, maybe check these things to see if you could have done something better. If you invest an E1 on top, he gets even better in buffing rather than just going for more sustain, and he actually has a decent buffing signature unlike most sustains, though luckily it's not highest in level. So on that note, let's move on to Lycones. Though Worlds Apart starts off with one of the craziest attack buffs of 64%. When ulting, the wearer can now also heal all allies based on the wearer's attack. Interesting. And then all allies will get a damage percent buff, increase if they have a summon. So basically, strong shields, slightly better attack buff, some healing, and then team-wide damage with a little extra for your carry with Soul Dragon. It is definitely nice to have, but a luxury, and he does not need this to function or sustain well. And remember, even if your shields fall off from some big attack, you still have the rest of your HP bar until you die anyway. Now, funnily enough, in most of my testing, I didn't even touch this light cone. A sustain should not need a light cone to sustain, and he doesn't. I didn't even use a preservation cone. In fact, I just used a high attack cone from a completely different path, and that's what you should probably do if not pulling his signature. There are some benefits from preservation cones, but not too many, and getting a high attack provides both buffing and shielding capabilities. So funnily enough, you can even use Dill's light cone on him because of that high base attack whilst also carrying on Dill's will to the next version. Losing out on base attack when we're going to be spamming attack beans and subs is not ideal, and losing it for some weak bonuses is not worth it. So for calcs, instead of the usual damage in a team, here are the attack buff amounts, amp difference in the base and Naxa sim, and the shield power. I've also included notes like Japard's cone being useful for EHR in a Kafka team for her attack percent buff. Note that the amp difference is usually very low, but the shield is what matters. And on the topic of light cone, S1 versus E1, the classic question. Well, it's a tough one. I just say E1 most of the time because the amp is better and because the SP can be really useful in some teams, like Naxa compositions, Dot, the Herter, Archer. But S1 is close behind in amp, it costs less pulls, and it helps more in sustaining, notably for Anomaly Arbitration, but I do not like the idea of pulling extra stuff for a Stellar Jadeless game mode. I can see either being a good investment and really depends on what you prefer or need in your teams. But now let's discuss his build. The brand new Self-Enshrouded Recluse set is the de facto shield farm with shield effect buffs and crit damage for anyone shielded. It is very easy to maintain and helps with sustain. If you have his signature, however, he now technically heals, and that makes him a target for the Warrior Goddess set, providing speed over shield effect and a similar buff otherwise. Though this does require you to maintain consistent ults as the buff only lasts 2 turns. Finally, if using him with Finan, you can do the Saridra strategy of running Sakados for an even bigger buff of 36% crit damage rather than 15%. He will skill for free with this technique, and then skill again on his turn. Maybe you don't have the SP for this though, and the buff can run out on some teams, and he also can't go behind Finan like Saridra can in said teams. As for the planar ornaments, Lushaka is your best bet. More attack buffing is coolio for your hypercarry teams, and a bit of energy can't go wrong. Penacony also works with a physical carry. Broken Kill, if building up to 30% F-res, is also chill, but that requires a bunch of substats. Then we have his main stat selection. Dan Heng will want an attack chest, speed boots, attack orb, and then energy rope. Do not go crit chest, it is troll. He doesn't do damage, he does damage through the carry stats. Do not go physical damage orb for the same reason. And even if it somehow brought a bit more damage from Dan Heng, remember, every time you drop an attack piece, you're also dropping buff power and shield potency. Just don't do it. For the other 2 pieces, speed boots are great for SP and energy generation, or making sure you're fast to shield up the team if necessary. And energy rope is wanted for more multipliers for your carry, and the ult also gives out chunky shields, so it's not a detriment to your sustain capabilities. For a stat goal, your attack will vary heavily on the light cone, but aim for at least 3k, and you could try to get 4k with higher base attack cones like off-path ones. Remember, he only really needs attack and speed. Speaking of speed, aim for a speed around your team's amount as a good base, and then you can go higher if you like, for example, a common goal like 160. Though him taking another action at the 160 breakpoint isn't going to change much most of the time, just making him fast without hurting his shield power is the goal here, do not worry about specifics. But finally, let's talk about synergies. As said before, he can really go anywhere that uses attack, but what parts of him synergize with who? Well, the SP generation synergizes with many teams. The Herter, Dot, Anaxa, Finan, Archer, all of these teams consume considerable amounts of SP, and having a fast sustain B+1 a turn can really help. And it doesn't impact sustain in most modes, and then he provides benefits on top. His attack frequency can also help some teams. Acheron with E2 Silverwolf, Base Xiao, the Herter. They can all use his basic spams, and then ults, and then enhance Soul Dragons to battery their ultimates. And his attack buff and multiply bonuses benefit every attack scaling carry in the game. The only team that doesn't abuse it as much as others is Dot, as they are not going to be doing big crit damage, but it's still okay, and the attack buff is still there. And if you run a team with Sunday, he only gets better. He forms a really strong core duo for any attack hypercarry. Head with Ceridra for units like Anax and Finan, and you have a tremendous trio. And Sunday focusing all on damage and crit and being universal and stuff actually makes that attack buff from Dan even more desirable for these teams. Finally, the damage percent gain Sunday gives with the summon on top is pretty strong, but him bringing up Soul Dragon every turn is also nice for sustain. Though to be honest, at the same time, that advance on Soul Dragon isn't always necessary because of the 165 speed they have, but also because of the action advance they get. For example, Ceridra with Anaxa. With Sunday you'd get Soul Dragon, Anaxa, Sunday, Anaxa 4 skills, Soul Dragon, but all that advance is wasted. With Bronya, you'd have Soul Dragon, Anaxa skills, Bronya, Anaxa 4 skills, which is then 90% advance for a 165 speed Soul Dragon, who will thus act right after anyway. Even if it wasn't Anaxa, it'd still be a minimum of 30% advance forward for the dragon for acting twice. And so even without an advanced forward unit, some characters just attack a ton and can bring up the dragon easily, or you just use a skill point on Dan. I'd say two big synergies though are Anaxa and Finan, again. He wasn't made for them, I'd say like Ceridra was, but they benefit greatly. In MSC, he just acts as a really nice sustain, useful for Anaxa, and eventually useful for Finan when you can't finish the fight in an ult or two. In Pure Fiction, he gives us some AoE attacks, which can help clear trash mobs and push a bit more score. And in Apocalyptic Shadow, he does the Wearer's type damage, but not their element when attacking. I wish he did that, to be honest. But what this means is he can't help with break unless it's versus physical weak, and Finan and Anaxa can both guarantee this. As for Finan specifically, we get 2 instant core flames with Dan for a combo of Dan Heng technique, skill, Ceridra technique, skill and ult, Finan skill, Sunday skill and ult, Finan skill, Dan Heng ult into Finan ult. Lovely. With Dan, we now have another source of multipliers into Finan ult. Lovely. With Dan, we now have another source of multipliers like Ceridra in the Khazlan estate, despite Danny not being on field. We get pretty sizable buffs despite losing a potential Bronya, and we still have a good core flame rotation despite losing again that Bronya, all whilst being a sustain. Of course, premium sustainers will be stronger, but eventually the damage check is going to be too difficult. Final players don't need Dan in some game modes and can lose damage with him, but he's a comfy 4th slot now. But let me know what you guys think of him, and if you're planning on building him up or even pulling extra, I think he's beautiful. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.
So we're gonna take a look at Braxophone's video about Dan Heng's analysis. So let us get into it.
So I don't know if you guys remember this from Penacony era when Aventurine came out. We were all like, oh my god, Aventurine's like the most broken character of all time. Get Aventurine, he's preservation, and you have like 1 preservation in the entire game, so you need Aventurine, blah, 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 right? Everyone was saying that Aventurine was so good, and he was just what we needed in the game to make everything super easy. If you're a free-to-play player, you pull Aventurine, you're chilling, you're never gonna die in MOC, stuff like that, right? Well, fast forward to like a year later, and we have all these HP scaling characters that don't want to play with shielders, and then Honkai Star Rail gave us a free where are you going? They gave us a free shielder, right? So my initial impressions to this were like, okay, I'm glad we're getting a free 5-star, and he's probably gonna be cracked because every single time they give us a free 5-star in this game, they're cracked, right? But I was wondering, like, where are you gonna play him? Because so many of the characters are HP scaling. Well, as it turns out, he's basically just attack scaling Aventurine. Like, this guy is a Giga Shielder. He gives you so much shield, you'll never have to worry about dying, and he does a decent amount of damage when paired up with other characters. And yeah, he's a little bit different in that he's not providing buffs for like follow-up attacks or anything like that, but he is giving your teammates attack when you use the skill. I wish he would stop idling so I could just have him staring at you guys. But anyways, I guess what I'm saying is he's finally here. It's like they're giving us a free Aventurine, and you guys are gonna love him. So let's get into it. My name is Braxphone. You can call me Brax, and today I'm gonna be showcasing a free-to-play light cone setup for a paid team on Daniel. The thing is, this guy can probably slot into a majority of the teams in the game, but today I'm gonna be showing you the Finan team because that's who it feels like this guy was 100% made for, was Finan. People will say Finan just keeps getting buffed, but there are some caveats to this, so we're gonna go over all that in this video. But with that said, let's get into it. Basically, we're gonna be doing the We Are Wildfire light cone. This one is honestly ass, but I'll go over the light cones more in depth later. The problem is there's just not a lot of high base attack light cones at all. Like all the 4-stars are 370 except for like 2. So we're going with the highest base attack light cone that we can. We have 3,800 attack, playing Lushaka and Self-Enshrouded Recluse, max traces, 0 Eidolons. So with all that being said, here are my first impressions on the new Dan Heng. All right, so here we are on MOC 12. We're using Finan, Dan Heng, Ceridra, and Sunday. So obviously Finan's best in slot team at this point, with the only exception being that if you don't have Dan Heng's signature light cone, I do think sustainless can technically be more damage, but if you're playing a mode like a harder MOC where they're dealing more damage to you, or if you're playing the brand new whale game mode, you're probably gonna want a sustainer for Finan, and Finan gets a big damage buff if you have a shield or a heal target him. So all things considered, he makes Finan's teams like much more comfortable. So you guys are probably wondering, okay, Brax, cut to the chase, what does this guy actually do? Well, Daniel is a shielder much like Aventurine, where he's gonna do constant AoE shielding and help out the littlest guy a little bit more. So when you have Dan Heng, if you use this technique here, it'll give the active character that you enter combat with the ability Bondmate. It'll use his skill on them technically, which does matter, by the way. It does not consume any skill points, but it'll give the character that you enter battle with Bondmate. So Finan is going to be the Bondmate, and when you use his skill, it gives all allies shield, but it also is going to give the Bondmate 15% of Dan Heng's attack as well. So you can already see on Finan, like if I scroll down a little bit, I already have 575 attack from Dan Heng. So thank you, Dan Heng, that's great. But what does Bondmate actually do? Well, Bondmate summons the Soul Dragon, which is Dan Heng's summon, and it gives it an initial speed of 165, which is pretty dang fast. And when the Soul Dragon takes action, it's going to dispel a debuff from all allies and shield them. So 1.x healers are an absolute shambles right now. We had characters that were using one skill point to cleanse one character, and now we have one guy that doesn't use any skill points to cleanse to cleanse debuffs from allies and acts very frequently. So this is kind of insane. But yeah, so he provides a little bit of shield here, and it's based on his attack. He's an attack scaler, which is great because he shares his attack with an ally, so it kind of makes more sense that way. And the shields can stack up to 300% of his max shield provided by skill. The really cool thing about this buff is that it doesn't have the same turn limit that the shields do. So technically, if you're like dying a lot, or if you're taking a ton of damage, you can skill to get more shields up once every 3 turns. But because he's applying shields so frequently, the line does not have to concern itself with it. Also, on top of that, this attack buff is basically just permanent, right? So you just have it the entire time. After a Bondmate's been declared, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You literally just keep the 15% attack the entire time. So that 575 that we have, we're never losing that unless we switch Bondmates, or if Daniel dies, which I don't think will happen. Having fast characters can benefit in another way as well, because when you go look at his talents, first off, I'll just mention he gets like 40% action forward at the start of combat. This is basically just Von Walk but built into his kit. But on top of that, every time the Bondmate uses an attack, Dan Heng gets 6 energy, and Soul Dragon is going to get a 15% action forward. So not only is that thing fast, but it's also getting 15% action forward every time your main DPS attacks. And if you play a fast main damage dealer that's bonded with this guy, then you're going to get a lot of action forward on them as well. But I will say that doesn't matter too much in Sunday teams, because the summon counts as belonging to the character that it's attached to. So Dan Heng's Soul Dragon actually counts as Finan's summon, which means that whenever Sunday action forwards Finan, it's going to bring up Finan and the Soul Dragon at the same time, which is so sick. On top of that, Sunday gets a huge buff from Free Daniel because his skill gives 30% damage bonus to the character that it action forwards, but if they have a summon, it gives 50% more. So in total, you're now getting 80% damage bonus from Sunday instead of the 30%. So an extra 50% on Finan. And then on top of that, if you couple that with the buff that Finan gets for having a shield, here it is. When receiving healing or shield from a teammate, deals 45% increased damage for 4 turns. Basically, you're getting 95% more damage bonus from running Dan Heng here. But yeah, so you don't always have to worry about being fast, but if you are fast, it'll benefit you. If you're playing Sunday, it just doesn't really matter. So what does his ultimate do? His ultimate is a shield ability, like I mentioned, but on top of that, Soul Dragon becomes enhanced. Normally, when Soul Dragon would take action, they would shield the ally Bondmate. But when Soul Dragon is enhanced like this, they're going to launch a follow-up attack that's going to deal damage based on Dan Heng and damage based on the Bondmate. So, for example, if I Bondmated Saridra, you would get physical damage and you would get wind damage from Saridra. But since we're playing 2 physical characters, it just doesn't really matter. Either way, you want this character to have high attack. You want them to be an attack scaler because that's what's going to benefit the most damage-wise. And his damage isn't negligible. I will say without a signature light cone, it is significantly less, but in general, it's pretty good for a sustainer. They get 2 enhanced actions, so you're only going to get 2 attacks of those with that dragon, but that's totally okay. On top of that, you are getting the bonus mini shield that Aventurine gives as well. You know how now Aventurine will give you a little bit of a bonus shield to the character with the lowest shield, or maybe it's lowest HP. I can't remember off the top of my head. This will give another mini shield to the character that has the lowest shield. So if one character just keeps getting hit over and over and over, like if you're playing Ting Yun, they will get an extra shield every single time the Soul Dragon takes action. So that's nice. And then on top of that, this major trace will also give a little bit more additional damage to the Bondmates type. So it just makes him even stronger. And honestly, I think that's everything. I'm like looking back through this, I'm like, is that really it? Yeah, I think that's it. Super easy character compared to every single other character we've had in Amphorius, and honestly, it's really refreshing. But now I guess I'll just go ahead and show you what actually happens when you play this character, because I think you guys are really gonna like it. All right, so we're gonna start off by just using his basic attack into his ultimate. And this animation is such a good callback to his 4-star animation. I think it looks pretty sick. I'm a little bummed they're not going to leave him free forever. I feel like it's kind of silly to have him be limited when he's such an integral part of the story, and it's just like literally an upgraded version of the 4-star, but it is what it is. Now we have the Dragon Enhanced already, which is nice, and I can skill with Saridra. The reason I'm going to basic attack on him basically every time is because we need skill points in this team. This entire team is on 4-star light cones, or not even 4-star light cones, but free-to-play light cones that don't give all the skill points that we want. So like with what we're running right now, our SP is going to be hurting. We're going to be in shambles for skill points. We're going to go ahead and skill on Finan. We could play faster Daniel for more skill points too, but I wanted to make the build a little bit more relatable, so we're just playing like 134 speed. Gonna go ahead and ult on Sunday, and as you can see, it moved up the Bondmate, or not the Bondmate, the Soul Dragon as well. So both Finan and Soul Dragon get action forward from this, which is super nice. But we're not going to let the Soul Dragon act. We're actually going to skill and go straight into his ultimate, because Finan's going to get an attack buff here, and that attack buff is going to make the Soul Dragon do even more damage. So that's pretty sick. I love that, actually. I think that's such a fun mechanic, and like such a fun thing about it, where it's like, oh, this character gets a giant buff right before he attacks, or right before the Soul Dragon attacks, and now the Soul Dragon's just going to clap him for 157k. Preservation unit, by the way. So go ahead and basic attack here. That gorilla's mad. I think we overkill here, but that's okay too. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Soul Dragon's gonna give a shield this time whenever he acts. Yep, there we go. So that's like 1,000 shield. Pretty decent. I'm gonna go ahead and use this to bring them to me, bring their action up, and then also gain a stack towards our next double meteor. Boom. And we need another stack too, so we are gonna miss out on some points here, but we wouldn't be getting another meteor in that time, so we're gonna go ahead and do this action forward again. And we'll get a lot of Soul Scourge stacks too, which will be super dope for the damage we're gonna dish back. Also, the Dragon's gonna give us some more shield. Very, very nice. Very kind of the Dragon. Almost 600k from that, pretty good. So now we're gonna double bounce skill here, which should kill everything and do a ton of damage to the boss. It's just so satisfying to watch. I love watching the HP go down in increments like that with the bounce skill. That's so dope. And as you can see, like, no one outside of Finan has taken any damage on this team, which is just ridiculous. All right, so here we're gonna basic attack on Saridra just because I want to make 100% sure we have enough SP for this. And we get the basic attack on Daniel as well. So, boom, basic. We're gonna ult so we get the enhanced dragon. We technically could wait too. I think waiting might have been more optimal so we'd have the buff, but I'm not worried about it. I think we still get this in 2 cycles. Gonna go ahead and ult on Saridra. Give us a couple of those stacks. Finan actually looking kind of low here. Uh-oh. Dragon's gonna attack 123k. Bring forward Finan. Now we're going to skill on Finan. Huge. All right, so here we go. We don't have the Saridra double meteor yet, but that's okay. We're gonna try and get that before the next one happens. So we'll do our bounce skill. Dragon will hit for 44k. Not quite as big, but that's okay. Then we'll just go ahead and do this. Boom. Gonna summon a bunch of little guys. Hopefully we blow them up with the double meteor and then the rest goes straight into the boss. Let's see. All right, here we go. Woo! Oh, that is disgusting. And we actually did it in 1 cycle. It wasn't even 2, so That's pretty sick. So it was a premium team, but all on free-to-play accessible light cones, which is dope. I love to see that. So now that you've seen sort of how this team plays and how the sustain works on this guy, it's pretty evident that his shields are strong and that he's a pretty strong character for us to get for free. But what are his downsides? Well, his main downsides are his light cone and the current meta of Amphorius, actually. So first, let me go over his light cone and show you his build, and then I'll get into teams. Right now, we are using We Are Wildfire, and the reason is because it has a higher base attack than the rest of the 4-star preservation light cones. The thing is, if we look at like some of these other options, they're mostly like 370 attack, right? If I'm scrolling through these, 370, I think Landau's Choice is higher. Yeah, Landau's Choice is 423, but the rest is 370. And on top of that, a lot of the preservation light cones have like some effect res or defense thing or damage reduction, and we don't need that. What we need is attack, and we need like maybe damage bonus. Like this one, Journey Forever Peaceful, this one's like actually pretty good, right? When an allied target has a shield, damage dealt increases by 12%, like that's okay, yeah. And also Japard light cone has the same attack stat as this one, but Japard's also a defense light cone, and it's just, there's not a lot of good options. Now I want to show you guys exactly why this is so important. I have 38 attack right now. I'm gonna switch to his signature, 49-31 attack. So that's a pretty high number, right? Your shields are gonna be strong and the damage that it deals is gonna be higher. But let's take a look at a 370 light cone now, like any other 4-star. Let's go ahead and throw on the Firefly one just for fun, right? 370 attack. That brings us from 4,900 down to 3,400. That's insane. That is such a massive loss. So at least by running the We Are Wildfire light cone, you're getting like a little bit more of that attack, to the point like where you get to 38-30, you're getting like 400 more attack. I think it's worth it over running one of the 300 light cones. If you're playing with Kafka and you want to get her like bonus attack thing, then you can use this for the effect hit rate and then just build them effect hit rate instead of some of the attack. It might be higher for you, right? But like other than that, it's really just the Battle Pass light cone for the damage bonus, and everything else is kind of all right. Oh, this one's also okay for like Acheron and stuff with the dot. But yeah, just in general, he does not have a lot of great free-to-play light cone options. Texture Memories is okay, but it's still less than We Are Wildfire. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna be honest, the light cones may be a little cooked for this guy. But what about his relics? His relics are not that bad. I'm actually opting for a build that probably not a lot of people are going to use. I went with attack. I just went with 4 attack. I decided to run him like some people run Aventurine these days, and honestly, it worked out great. Part of the reason I was okay running attack boots is because I already hit 134 speed. If I didn't hit 134, I would be running speed boots because this guy can be SP positive for you. It honestly should be SP positive for you. I don't think there's any content where you're going to spam shields, right? So you can run him speed boots, and I actually would recommend that typically, but I got him to 134, so I was like, screw it. I want to try and get as close to 4K attack as possible to give Finon a big chunky buff and also deal a little bit more damage from his personal stuff, especially because I'm not running his light cone. But if you're running his light cone, for example, and you switch over to like speed boots, you're gonna hit 4K no problem, because not only does this have a high base attack, but it also increases your attack by another 64%. And if you don't know what that is mathematically, that's literally a relic and a half. So, but yeah, the new set, obviously very good for him. Increase the shield effect provided, and then ally crit damage gets increased, and shield effect increase as well. So very good set for him specifically. And then I ended up running Lushaka to try and give Finon even more attack, but you can also run Penacony on him, which I think not a lot of people have very many built Penacony pieces because they are a little specific, but some folks might. And if you do have a built Penacony, you can run it on him as well with Finon because they are both physical. Another thing is the game will suggest that you run energy regen rope. You can totally do that. If you want to get more ults with him so you get more dragons for more damage, you totally can do that. But again, I went for attack because I wanted to get his attack as high as possible for the safety of the shields, test that out and stuff. And I ended up liking attack better, but ER is fine and is probably better in a lot of teams in specific scenarios, which is like you can go with either one. If you don't have another ER Lushaka rope, or like another ER Penacony rope, you can just go attack. It's totally fine. And if you have something like Fleet of the Ageless, you are gonna have like the all ally attack bonus. That's gonna be decent. Space Healing Station I wouldn't really recommend. It's okay. It's an all right option. At that point, we're getting down to like the clearly worse options, and I wouldn't recommend it. Onwalk's okay for the extra energy regen, but you typically don't need the action forward because he already has it built into his kit. So now, as far as teams go, I went ahead and used the Finon team this time because that's who I felt like was most benefited from him. But I'm gonna be honest, you guys, you can basically play him with anyone who is not a defense scaling or HP scaling attacker. Some people might be against break effect even, but I don't even think that's an issue, right? Because like while Linkshot is gonna be insanely good for break effect teams, Firefly has partial break scaling based on her attack. So if you give her an attack buff, that's like pretty good. That's even better. I'm gonna be honest, he's such a good generalist character. I think the only teams he doesn't feel like he works in are a lot of the newer meta teams like the Lycastris team and Evernight team and stuff, because so much of what they do has to do with consuming HP and you know, you don't play shielders with those teams typically. I will say Evernight has another problem, which is that most of her attacks are Memo Sprite attacks, so that's not going to actually trigger the Soul Dragon. The Soul Dragon will trigger when you have an ally attack that is bonded with the Soul Dragon, but you know, the Jellyfish on Evernight is not going to proc it. You're gonna have to actually basic attack on Evernight, so wouldn't exactly recommend that, but there are gonna be other characters you can play him with, and I'm gonna be so real, like you can just play him with anyone, even though it's not gonna give you anything like give all weaknesses to everybody with a Noxa or anything like that, but just because he's such a generalist attack buffing shielder that gives so many shields to everyone, that cleanses everyone, you can play him in any team that's not HP scaling and against any boss that isn't gonna just siphon your HP through your shield. So I don't feel like I need to go into specifics with this because he just works. The only thing that you should really know, the one thing you really want to pay attention to is just that Sunday plus him is great because Sunday is going to get an extra 50% damage bonus to whoever he bonds with. So these two as a pair turns into 15% of his attack and 50% more damage bonus from Sunday. Plus you get more actions on the dragon. So overall, like these two together are a pretty big damage increase for any character you pair him with. It's really nice to have what's basically Aventurine, but for free. So for those of you guys who want to know what his Eidolons do, I'm gonna give you the quick rundown. I can't really showcase these to you because otherwise I can't record more on this server without him being E6. So please add a toggle, however, I'm begging you. But yeah, so his E1 is pretty big, but it's not gonna be the game changer of all time. It's just really good specifically for fighting teams and pretty good for most teams. It's going to give you a skill point back whenever you use your ultimate on Dan Heng, and also it's going to increase the all-type res pen of your bond mate by 18% for 3 turns whenever that ult happens. So when you have this, if you're not playing with Finan, using an ER rope's probably the better option. However, if you do have Finan, you still might not need an ER rope because you'll get his ultimate pretty frequently when you have like your attack, like you have so many attacks going. So you might be okay. I would have to test this. Honestly, I can't say for sure, but I say if you do get this and you want to know, I would just experiment because it's probably going to depend on how many hits you're taking, whether or not ER rope is better or not with this. But either way, every character can benefit from this 18% all-type res pen. Finan specifically gets a lot of benefit from the skill point thing, especially if you don't have Sunday's Light Cone and Suridra's Light Cone. But moving on to E2, this one is crazy because it increases the amount of action Soul Dragon gets enhanced when he uses ultimate. So his ultimate starts normally gives him 2 enhanced Soul Dragon attacks. Now you're getting 4 every time you ult. And on top of that, the Soul Dragon will get 100% action forward when you ult with Dan Heng. So the Soul Dragon is going to be attacking immediately. And then on top of both of those things, the additional damage dealt from your bond mate's share of the dragon's damage will be double what it normally is. So let's say your Finan is contributing 80,000 damage. Well, now your Finan's contributing 160,000 damage. Like it's that straightforward. It's 200% of its original damage. And on top of that, you get double the shield, but I don't think the shield even matters because you're never struggling for shield anyways. But this combined with the fact that you're getting more attacks just means that what he adds to the team's personal damage is like insane. It's so high. Now E3 is ultimate and basic attack level up. E4 is going to reduce the damage taken by bond mate by 20%. I don't know who this is for, man. This reminds me of when they gave Zhao like extra defense after he was below 50% HP. E5 is skill and talent level up, and E6 is going to make it so the damage taken by all enemies is 20% higher. So it's a 20% vulnerability. On top of that, when you use his ultimate, you also get bond mate split damage, and it's a massive amount. Like it is a ridiculously high amount. His ultimate's gonna be clapping some cheeks. It's gonna do a lot of damage. Amongst all of those Eidolons, like obviously they're gonna make him do more damage. You get a little bit more survivability, but like who cares about that, right? Because like this guy's shields are already so strong. Unless they power creep the amount of damage enemies are doing to you, I don't imagine anything like that will be necessary for a while, right? But between E1 and his Light Cone, I'm gonna be so real. If you have Sunday's Light Cone, then the skill point gain from him honestly doesn't really matter. And honestly, if you're playing him fast, the skill point gain from him doesn't really matter as much either. The skill point thing is super useful for Finan specifically if you don't have a bunch of other premium Light Cones. But I'm imagining if you're going for E1 on Dan Heng, you probably have like a Light Cone or 2 on some of the characters that matter. Specifically like Sunday would be so beneficial. But on top of that, if you look at his Light Cone and the other Light Cone options you have, his Light Cone is going to increase his attack by 64%. When he uses his ultimate, it restores HP to all allies, and on top of that, give a huge damage increase to your entire team, which I think this is a vulnerability on the enemy, but it's a buff on you. It's just so ridiculously good for him. I feel like if you're not getting the Light Cone, then you shouldn't go for Eidolons, because truthfully, this is only better for you on your Finan team if you don't have stuff for Sunday, if you don't have the thing for Suridra. But this Light Cone is so good and will make him so powerful in every single team because of the attack buff he's gonna share, because of the damage contribution he's gonna have, and because of the damage increase he's gonna give to your whole team. his light cone, in my opinion, is much better than going for E1. However, if you're going for E2, I mean, they're not exactly equal, right? So like getting the light cone is going to be easier for you, but for some reason you want to go for E2, that is going to add more than the light cone will. So with that said, what do I think about Dan Heng? Well, I gotta be honest with you guys. If I'm completely honest, I think this is a very strong free character to get, but I just think it's like a little odd to give us a free shielder for a limited time when we haven't gotten a shielder in over a year. Like, it took us a year to get a new shielder, and then they gave this one to us for free if you log in for a certain amount of time. But if you miss that time period, you just don't get him. And I feel like that's kind of shitty. I feel like as far as units go, he's very good. He doesn't work with some of the top meta teams right now that have like HP drain, right? Like you want Hyacinth and her light cone because the game's all about Hyacinth now. But if you do have characters other than the Amphoreus HP scalers that you want to use, like if you want to use Finan, who is Amphoreus but not an HP scaler, or if you have other characters like Kafka's Dot team and stuff like that, you can play him there and he's actually great. His shields are fantastic and it really does feel like we're getting a free Aventurine. We're just not in the part of the game that needs Aventurine except for one character. But he's generally good with like every other attack scaling DPS in the game. So, you know, keep that in mind. He's definitely not cooked or anything. He's actually very good. Is he like super omega broken? Probably not, but he's free. And right now he makes Finan feel a lot safer to play. So I think that's a pretty big win, honestly. I kind of wish they had given this to us too. I also feel like this would be nice to have. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about Daniel, if you're going to be building him or not. And I guess next up is Cyrene. So I'll see you guys then. And I'm really looking forward to that character. Subscribe if you like sweaty men.
So a big shout out to both Go Certified and Braxophone for giving us a deep analysis of Dan Heng. So from the summary we can infer that Via Wildfire is the best free-to-play light code for Dan Heng till maybe a free-to-play comes maybe in the future. And his signature is best in slot. His signature, the Through the Worlds Apart, is his best in slot light code, right? Whereas in my case, like I also wanted to get the signature light cone for Casterus, but I didn't have much Jades left. So what I did was I equipped a random, like since she was HP scaling, right? So I took other HP light cones and just put onto her until and unless I got the Remembrance light cones. So when I got Hyacinth and Hyacinth's light cone, thanks to luck or thanks to pity, right? I also got a free Remembrance light cone from. I got a free Remembrance 4-star light cone the uh, from the banner, and I put on Casterus. The one that I put on Casterus right now is the story's next page, the Remembrance light cone. That is a best free to play for now. Okay. So in case of Dan Heng, if you don't get a signature light cone, fine. Equip any other light cone, like equip the Via the Wildfire light cone for now. You'll at least have the best attack stats while able to use the light cone's abilities. So in case of his sets, right? Lushaka is the best in slot for the planet ornaments. And the banana amusement set is also fine if you want to kind of focus on giving crit damage, maybe to your other units, right? If you want to give crit damage to your units using Durham, then you can go for the banana amusement. But I will mostly stick to Lushaka because it at least gives 12% extra damage in comparison to 10% for from the Penacony set. And and the new set, the self-enshrouded recluse, is the best in slot 4-piece cavern relic set. And the Sacrados may be the alternative. So the stats that you must focus on getting right should mostly be of attack percent and speed. These two are the things you must focus on: attack percent and speed. Rest all is secondary. You can think of a defense or HP if you want to improve his survival ability, right? But main stats are for this. So I would mainly focus on attack percent, speed boots, attack percent, and energy regeneration. Because the faster the energy regeneration, he'll be able to regenerate his skill again and again. And talking about the teams that works best at finding are the attack scaling DPSs. So certain units like Finan, Anaxagoras, Acheron, Facial, Dioda, Argenti, like these all work well with him, Dirham. Whereas it's best in slot for Finan and Anaxagoras, right? Any non-remembrance unit, this guy is the best shielder. Remembrance units have got their DPSs and they've got the supports. In case of Castorus, you have Hyacinth, right? Whereas for Finan, the shielding part was missing, right? So that is going to be fulfilled by Dan Heng Permanisor Terrae. And for the skill point issue, right? Especially like for the skill point regeneration, we have Sunday, and for letting find an action advance forward and go twice, we have Ceridra. The same thing you can use it for Anaxagoras. He's absolutely fantastic. You can use it on Acheron, you can use it on Boodle, you can use it on any attack scaling DPSs. That also includes Firefly. So yeah, he's fantastic for attack scaling DPSs. And as for the question for E1 and S1, you must have heard from Google certified that he said he would prefer E1 over S1 because of the skill point issue and also for the 18% all-time penetration risk, right? But the S1 is also not far behind, and the thing is, that's the trap. And that's the trap, that's what. Like, there's a good light course for him. So, they are literally tricking you to pulling it for S1. But my suggestion is go for the free to play light cone, right? And just build him first, okay? Build him to the max level with max artifact stats, and you'll see how good he is actually. And also talking about Namely arbitration, right? If you haven't cleared the night stages, right? Especially the stage 2, because the stage 2 is perfectly designed for DOT. So if you don't have DOT units like Kafka, High Sealants, or Black Swan, or Huawei, you won't be able to clear this. You won't be able to clear this round properly. But the alternative to that is the decks that I kind of used. Yep, I have my Find an E0 S1. I got a signature weapon while summoning for him. Similarly, I also summoned his Sunday signature light code as well during his initial mission session. So in that case, if you're unable to beat especially the Night 2, right? Out of the three nights, the Night 2 is the most trickiest one. The Night 3 is for remembrance units. The Night 1 you can use break units, and this one is strictly DOT. I say get I say like if you have the fighting team, you could use this. To watch that gameplay here, press the I button here. I'll also give the video in the description as well, right? And You can go take a look at that. How I used Fine in Sunday to destroy the Night 2 and then get access to Ligus. Okay? You could access Ligus directly, but it'll be much easier if you break the Knight's shield. So that's why once you break all the three shields, then it'll be better. It'll be better for you to go and face Ligus. It'll be easier for you to face Ligus. And with that, I'll end my analysis on Dan Heng and like whatever videos we have went through, right, from Braxophone and Google Certified. I'm gonna give the links in the description. You can have a watch for it yourself. And that's it. So I would request you to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more Honkish Channels content. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.